Good evening, viewers. The national capital is grappling to pick up the pieces after the devastating riots that have left 42 dead and over 200 injured. As the violence ebbs, the extent of the damage will soon be known. Now, we've been reporting how over 2,000 vehicles have been torched, how homes and shops have been burnt down indiscriminately. While the human cost of this tragedy is staggering, tonight we will expose how the Delhi riots was not something that happened overnight. It was not spontaneous. It was not a flare-up. This was a sinister plot planned in advance. Now, Managing Editor Vinay Tiwari will tell you exactly why the riots in the national capital was a premeditated conspiracy.
Good evening. We're calling it a pre-planned conspiracy for many reasons. Remember, the riots in Northeast Delhi happened over a period of 3 days. In fact, not only did they happen over a period of 3 days, they actually kept increasing for the first 48 hours or so. Something that is virtually impossible in a city like Delhi, a city which has a very well-endowed police force, as we've been pointing out for the last many days. It's a force that has access to men, material, resources, and even central forces should you need. But just take a look at what really happened and how it happened. All through that violence period that you saw in the last 48 to 72 hours, there was an excessive use of petrol bombs. Petrol bombs is something that just cannot be made by any ordinary individual. It requires some amount of training, it requires practice, and it requires an experience of how to put together a makeshift bomb, which is possibly the most useful tool if somebody had to indulge in arson. Take a look at another statistics and data that we've got from official sources. Of the 42 odd people who've died in this massive riot, 22 have died because of gunshot wounds. And of the 200 who are currently injured in various hospitals, over 60 of them have gunshot wounds. So all in all put together, over 80 people received gunshot wounds. So it's almost like a gun war was on in the streets of Delhi with very little control. We found out over the last 2 days on how truckloads of stones and bricks have been used to indulge in brick batting and stone pelting, which is almost a staple in any riot that happens throughout this country. Many of our reporters have spoken to eyewitnesses who all say that the people who were actually seen indulging in violence in those narrow bylanes of Northeast Delhi were actually outsiders. They were not people who they had seen before. And remember, these are areas in Delhi where most people can recognize an outsider from somebody who lives in their neighborhood. We've also got some footage and visuals which shows how there was almost a use of militia-style tactics to spread fire. In one particular instance, we have a video which shows how a burning motorcycle was pushed inside a house because that works as a very effective tool to set the building on fire. And the last reason, amongst the seizures that the police has done so far, a wide range of weapons has been found, from knives to sharp-edged objects, to sticks, to stones, to batons, to even slingshots. Gulel, as they say in Hindi, even that has been used. All of these are armory of a rioter, and a rioter who understands what's required and who can actually collect enough of them to force such violence over a very large part of the city. Aarti.
Right, these are the reasons that we're going to explore in great depth tonight. And to discuss this, joining me on tonight's show, Diptiman Tiwari, Assistant Editor, The Indian Express, T.R. Kakkar, former Commissioner of Police, Delhi, Arvind Kumar Jain, former DGP, Uttar Pradesh. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me. Mr. Kakkar, if I can begin with you. Now, in your vast years of experience, would you say Delhi is a textbook case of a pre-planned, premeditated riot?
There is no doubt that a lot of planning was made to initiate these riots. Troubleshooters were brought in from the adjoining states. Adequate preparations were made in the form of petrol missiles, and bricks and stones were collected. The gulels were there. They must have been rehearsed also. Then, not only that, if you go, I hope your people go and see, no NRC marking was done on houses of the minority group so that they by mistake, they are not set on fire. Similarly, if you know, most of the rioters of a particular community were wearing helmets of the same type. Just imagine how can so many helmets come. That means adequate preparation was made. Similarly, the Hindu houses, that means the other communities' houses were also marked. Now, this all has been done. This shows how much preparation has gone into this particular thing. Now, after that, you see, now that things are done, now you start becoming a victim before the media. You start to bring in the Ganga Yamuna behavior or whatever you call it. All that is sham. All that is sham. I can tell you, this is not the end. Much worse things will happen if the administration, Delhi administration and the Delhi police do not act as per the law. My only request to Delhi police officers is, you may listen to anybody, everybody in authority, but when you are on the ground, see that you do what is required to be done to curb the riots. And my appeal to everybody else is that please do not interfere with the working of the police in such situations, because it is only on the ground that you know what exactly needs to be done to put down these riots. Sitting in air-conditioned rooms, sitting in air-conditioned offices and sipping coffee does not tell you what is happening on the ground. You only get a report. But what is really happening on the ground is only known to the person who is operating there. Let him have that freedom if you really want the control to be brought about immediately. Otherwise, I'm saddened to learn that Delhi police, one of the best police forces in the world, has not been able to curb this. And I know from the very reliable sources what went wrong and why did it go wrong.
Right.
Take, for example, these people have always been saying, holding the constitution in hand, to say that to save the constitution we are doing this. Tell me which article of the constitution tells you to block a road and put thousands of people to inconvenience for such a long time. You have the right to protest. Please protest. But when you protest, make sure that it is in a place which is earmarked, or a place which does not cause inconvenience to anybody.
Right.
Now, it led to this riot because they felt...
No, Mr. Kakkad, we'll come to the specifics just in a bit.
Now that the rounding up has started, now that cases have been registered, they'll learn the lesson of their lifetime.
Mr. Kakkad, we'll come to the specifics.
As far as the courts are concerned, my, again, humble submission, you may have 110 things to say about the police. Please wait for some time. Whatever you want to say, the police will give suitable reply, and if you're not satisfied, you are free to point out what action should be taken. Yeah. But at this moment when the entire police force is busy, let them work. Let them work. Don't put unnecessary pressure on them.
Yeah, Mr. Kakkad, we'll come to the specifics in just a minute. I just wanted to extend what you just said and bring in Deeptiman Tiwari, because Deeptiman is someone who's covered riots on the ground and he understands Delhi very well. Deeptiman, what Mr. Kakkad is actually trying to tell you, number one, is of course how Delhi police is a very well-oiled machine. It's not a force that is a stranger to riots. It's not a force that is stranger to something happening so quickly. And specifically, the Northeast district, which I'm sure you're very well aware of, is a very sensitive district. It's a district which every Delhi police officer knows is a hotbed for many gangs. There are people who live there in those bylanes and streets who have access to all kinds of weaponry and armory. The number of illegal weapons that we've seen, which have been used in this case, have been very large, and most houses have them. Surely on Sunday, when the first signs of some trouble had started, anything that could have been done for some preventive action by rounding up those people or going and even searching for these illegal weapons or rounding up people who can do that was not really done. In fact, I just wanted to let you know, I'm sure you know about this, but there is one specific official data that we have which shows that on February 23rd, the number of PCR calls that went from the Northeast district was 700. On 24th, the following day, the numbers went up to 3,500. And on 25th of February, the number of PCR calls in district went up to 7,400. So actually, instead of actually bringing the situation under control, it just kept getting worse, despite the fact that Delhi police knew very well what kind of district Northeast was. Would you not agree that this is something that is a grave, not just dereliction of duty, but perhaps sometimes even maybe complicity in it?
Let's, you very well put the entire scenario in perspective. Let's underscore a few things here. People have been saying that it has been an intelligence failure. Now let's understand that it is now emerging that it wasn't exactly an intelligence failure. And it couldn't have been. Anyone who has covered the police understands this, and you have also underscored this when you were just talking about it. The US president was visiting India. Everybody knew about it. The kind of preparations that the national capital of a country would make for something like that, in a scenario where a protest is already ongoing. There was already information that the protest at Shaheen Bagh was losing its sheen. And there would be attempts to take it to other places. Then there was intelligence. There have been meetings which have been held between Home Ministry officials, Intelligence Bureau, and Delhi Police as back as February 16 and 17 about information that people were gathering in Northeast districts, and there would be an attempt to recreate Shaheen Bagh in Jafrabad or some other place in the Northeast district. Despite all of this, what we now learn is that when not only did the police on the ground not anticipate and prepare well for it, but there weren't enough boots on the ground. Now, not having enough boots on the ground when US president is visiting your city is, I don't know how to describe this. I really don't know how to describe this. And both Delhi police and the government would have to actually explain this as to how this was not done well in time. How could this not be anticipated well in time? How could the response be so lackadaisical that the entire thing went completely out of your hand? And as you said about Northeast District, let us understand it is one of the most densely populated areas in Delhi. It has a mixed population. On either side of the roads, you have people from two different communities staying. It has a high crime rate. Everybody knows there are gangs which operate there. Illegal guns, country-made weapons have always been found there. So many cases of illegal arms, smuggling, petty thefts, petty crimes have been reported from those areas. So one has to understand that any incident which takes place, any communal tension which takes place, will have the potential to spiral out of control very quickly unless the police machinery acts with full force and with complete strong response well in time.
Right, Vinay, I want to take you up on what Diptiman has said. Now, he's made a very important point that what explains his lackadaisical attitude? There can only be two things, either incompetence or complicity in that case, because this has been building up from Sunday. You had the incident at the Jafrabad metro station. We also, in fact, have visuals of a truck bringing in stones. This is not something that just happened. They found a stone lying on the floor. They picked it up and threw it. This is not a flare-up that then blew up into a full communal conflagration. This was something that had been brewing and then burst out through the seams.
Yes, and you know, Mr. Kakkad has led that police force with great distinction, and he'll bear me out on that, if on a comparative grid, if there is any police force in the country that is possibly the best endowed in terms of men and material and resources and manpower, it's possibly the Delhi police. I mean, of course, it may not be still enough for a growing city, but it is still on a comparative grid much better than any other state police force. Also, with very close, you know, UT cadre officers, and again, Mr. Kakkad will agree with me on this, that UT cadre officers have great access to the MHA, unlike any other cadre officers. Probably they have people on their speed dial, which other state officers may not have. So even to access and requisition additional forces is very easy in Delhi. It can happen much more quickly than it can happen in any other state because it takes time to move people. Delhi has bases of BSF, they have CRPF, they have a CP reserve which is always stationed next to the Yamuna banks. They have RAC. I remember during Mr. Kakkad's tenure, the Rajasthan Arms Constabulary used to provide the reserve police forces of some battalions. There is also RAF now, which was not there when he was there, but RAF is now available as well. So access is not a problem. Moving in quickly is not a problem. Diptiman talked about boots on the ground. What has happened since the time Mr. Ajit Doval landed the spot? Just more boots on the ground. What they were doing is textbook, copybook, riot control measures. You put more boots on the ground. The leadership hits the streets themselves. You saw the Mr. Doval hitting the streets. You saw Sen Srivastava, who was brought in after being repatriated from Parent Carter, hitting the ground. And today he had the LG visiting it. All of this has a salutary effect. What also has a salutary effect in riot control is a visual display of authority. And when you visually display authority, it means you put more machines, you pack the area with Vajra vehicles, which are anti-riot vehicles, whether you use them or not. Delhi now has a SWAT team which just looks intimidating. You don't have to use the SWAT because they're not meant for this purpose, but they just look intimidating. You can use all of these visual tactics to handle it. Clearly, for 48 hours or so, nothing of that was done or thought of. With one other specific point, Aarti, that I must point out, and again, Mr. Kakkad will bear me out on this. Delhi Police has a division called Special Branch. Special Branch has designations called ACP Communal. I don't know if they still call it or not, but in the 90s, they used to call him, the designation was ACP Communal, whose job was to keep an eye on communities because, as Diptiman said, Northeast has people living very close to each other from different communities, and conflagrations have happened. Riots have happened in Silampur before, they've happened in Kabutar Market before, and they've happened in Maujpur Chowk before. So they have a division which is supposed to keep track of this. I'm not ready to believe that those officers who are supposed to be in muftis on the ground did not know that something was building up and couldn't act in time on it.
Arvind Kumar Jain, let me bring you in here. We've also seen the use of petrol bombs. In fact, we've seen craters and craters of petrol bombs in certain areas of Chandbagh that were being used. Now, it's not easy to make a petrol bomb. It's not like you can go into a shop, buy some petrol, make it at home and then, fling it out of the window. So this has obviously been a planned act that has been building over time.
Yes, you are 100% correct.
I agree with every word.
Mr. Kakkad, I'm going to come to you in just a minute. We'll just bring in Mr. Arvind Kumar Jain, who's listening in very patiently. Mr. Jain, go ahead, please.
I have been saying right from the day one, many people might not agree with me that Shaheen Bagh should not have been allowed. That was the first very big blunder on the part of Delhi police. You bring 1,000 girls, women of CRP, Delhi police, and remove the protesters. There is no sense in men using force against ladies, but you remove them. You remove them forcibly. If they have to be sent to jail, send them to jail. But you can't allow people to stop an important road which is leading to Noida. Number two, same thing happened at Jafarabad. 3 days before, Jafarabad Metro, again another Shaheen Bagh was permitted. Why was it permitted? It should not have been permitted. Now it led to counter dharna. Then it led to counter slogan shouting. Brick batting started. That was the flashpoint, and riot started. You might accuse Kapil Mishra, you might accuse anybody, but that Jafarabad thing should not have been allowed. During our service, we have never allowed it. Even if you have to use force, even if you have to be very stern with the people, you have to do it because it is your duty. You are supposed to protect the people. You are supposed to stop dharnas, counter dharnas in densely populated areas. Once you allow it, then you should be prepared for a full-fledged riot. Because if one person throws a stone, then the brick batting starts and there will be full-fledged riot. Number three, in my opinion, this was in the offing. Full preparations had been made for this riot. The slingshots which I saw today, which is a sort of jugaad, I have never seen it in my service, such slingshots. So, and petrol bombs, as you said rightly, so much of material, weapons, bricks, and then so many illegal things. Bombs were thrown. This was going on. Preparation was going on for quite some time, and they deliberately timed it during Trump's visit, so that the country, the NDA government gets a bad name. I don't agree with this contention that government is involved in it. No government in its senses will provoke such a riot and get a very bad name, get a very bad international publicity at the time of President of US visit, when the international media is there, when entire world is watching you. And in my service, during my service of 36 years, I have always seen that whenever there is a VVIP visit, crime rate is zero because the top class policing is there. Now we have drones, we have a satellite coverage also. Why was it not done? Why action was not taken against gangs, against parties, against antisocial elements of the area? In all the districts, it should have been done. Why was it not done? I think it's very poor leadership on the part of senior officers of Delhi Police. I said it on your channel that Lieutenant Governor who controls Delhi Police, controlling officer, he should have been on the street. There was no need for NSA to come. I am of firm conviction that NSA visited because he wanted to have first-hand account of the situation. He was suspecting that this is a gross anti-national activity. This is not a criminal activity. This is not a communal conflagration. And he had come to take stock of the situation. And he took stock of the situation. Forces were pumped in. During VVIP visits, we always used to keep several companies in reserve in sensitive areas. Why was it not kept? The force should have been there. Regular deployment should have been there. Extra BSF companies, ITBP companies, as the gentleman was saying, Delhi Police has PAC contingent, RAC contingent. So many companies are there. Why were they not stationed at sensitive points? And they should have been there. You cannot have a riot in Delhi for 48 hours.
Exactly, Mr. Jain.
There is conspiracy behind it. SIT and the intelligence agencies, RAW, yeah, should all look into this aspect and should unearth the conspiracy. Name of Bhim army is coming, name of gangs are coming. They can take advantage of a situation, but they cannot start the riot. Who started the riot? On whose instigation, on whose orders the whole thing started? That should be unearthed.
Right, those are very important questions that we're even grappling with. And since the tell-all signs of the situation, pressure cooker-like situation building, why is it that the Delhi police didn't act? It's something that we're still looking for a convincing answer for. But Mr. Kakkar, you wanted to come in. Please go ahead.
I agree with almost all the observations made by the learned speakers. I can tell you, I'm still thinking as to why such a soft approach was adopted for Shaheen Bagh. Now look what has happened. From there to Jafrabad, and now almost 42 people are dead. There are more than 350 injured. Maybe some more will die. Only if we had followed the rule book, which is for the riots, communal riots. I remember in 1978-79, we were told, and there were some instructions, somebody has to dig out those things, that in case of communal riots, once you feel that the communal riots are likely to take place and they are started, you do not have to adopt go for the kill. Go use the maximum force and bring it under control. And that does not take more than 3-4 hours. Now, if that approach had been adopted, I don't know why it was not adopted. Maybe there would have been 10 casualties, 15 casualties and all that. And you would have avoided this international shame that has come to us. Now, as far as the preparations are concerned, let me tell you, everybody knew that Mr. Trump would be visiting city, and everybody, not only this group, but the entire opposition, which includes Congress, which includes leftists, which includes everybody else, wanted to make sure that this visit does not go off peacefully. Now, that should have been known and must have been known to the intelligence agencies, and therefore, adequate preparations were required to be made and acted upon. It is not just standing. The moment you find, I agree with the speaker, that the moment Jafrabad, something was happening, you find a truck bringing in missiles, you find so many other things which are very evident that something is going to take place. Go for the kill. Go for the kill. You don't have to wait. And as far as the Human Rights Commission is concerned and others are concerned, I am of the firm opinion that if you have taken action as per the law permits you. You read section 96 to 100 of the Indian Penal Code. To save somebody's life, to save somebody's property, you can kill a person. We are not jalads, we don't want to kill people. But if they bent upon doing something which is going to destroy the image of a country, then we should take that action.
Right,
This is why, and that instruction must be still on the statute book. Somewhere instructions are there.
Now, Vinay, what both Mr. Kakkar and Mr. Arvind Kumar Jain seem to be indicating is that this is somehow linked to Shaheen Bagh. Now, would you agree with that assessment, that that is the genesis of this all?
Look, we have two very senior, distinguished police officers who've led police forces in the past, so maybe I shouldn't disagree with them, but in this instance, I humbly slightly disagree, and I'll tell you why. Both of them will agree with me that law and order and riot control is a situational decision, which means that two similar looking riots on the ground may require a very different response from the officers on the ground, because obviously they are the best judges of how a situation can unfold. Mr. Jain has led UP police force, and UP is no stranger to riots in districts. It can happen pretty often and it can spread very quickly. And I can tell you that he would agree that different districts the riots may look different, but they all have very different localized reasons, and the approach to both of them may be slightly different. Now, I personally believe that in the case of Shaheen Bagh, the genesis of Shaheen Bagh was before the process of elections actually started heating up. And it started peaking when the election campaigning was on. And hence, the situation was slightly different for the police. It wasn't a normal, regular situation. It wasn't just a law and order issue anymore. It had become a political issue. It had become a campaign issue. And it had become a very contentious campaign issue. That makes the job of the police a little more difficult. So I am willing to give them a little bit of a leeway in not dilly-dallying about Shaheen Bagh initially, because obviously, and then the courts got involved in it as well, and hence they had this issue of the court looking into it as well. Also remember that Shaheen Bagh carried on for almost 2.5 months, and it was largely peaceful. Nothing really happened except for two people landing up with weapons. It wasn't never really a right situation. Just one quick point I wanted to add. In Delhi, and Mr. Kakkar will agree with me, in Delhi, there are really largely 4 areas where we have seen communal riots. Seelampur has been one of the worst because they repeatedly have had riots and communal issues, although contained very quickly. Jama Masjid of the walled city has seen some, but last some years, 10 years or so, we haven't seen one, possibly because the commercial interests of the people who live there have grown and they don't want or like riots happen. You've seen a couple of them happening in the Nizamuddin area. And you've seen Jamia and the areas around Jamia, Batla House, where riots have happened. Outside of these 4 areas, Delhi doesn't really see any communal riot or conflagration. Now, even sociologically, Northeast Delhi is very different from Jamia. It's also equally different from walled city as well. In fact, if you see, the people in walled city don't like people in the Jamia Nagar area. I mean, the whole, if you go to Jamia Nagar, they will say, Delhi 6 walon se mujhe baat nahi karni hai. Now, Delhi 6 is a euphemism for people who live in walled city because that's the pin code. So, it's not as if it's one coterminous whole and what happens in one area can impact another directly. I personally believe that the Delhi police's response to what was happening in Northeast was a greater culpability than possibly their failure to crack down on Shaheen Bagh earlier enough.
So Northeast Delhi in that sense has always been a bit of a communal cauldron. A place that has been volatile and known for a few skirmishes, like Diptiman was telling us. It's very unlike most other parts of Delhi. But Diptiman, in all your years of covering New Delhi, the kind of easy access that we have seen to guns, we have out of the deceased, 21 of them have had gunshot wounds. Around 86 of the injured have had gunshot wounds. This easy access to guns plus also petrol bombs. Now, how easy or difficult would it be in a city like Delhi or in this particular area of Delhi to have access to this kind of ammunition?
Let's see, Northeast District, we must understand, is also bordering UP. And gun culture in these parts is not news to anyone. Western UP is flooded with illegal guns. And so is Northeast Delhi, for that matter. So illegal guns, I'm not surprised at all, were found, and that there were so many gunshot wounds, I'm not surprised at all. And that these guns would have been procured right before the riots also, I'm not ready to believe. This is an area which has had many gangs operating. It has many petty criminals operating. So country-made guns being there and them being used in the riots, I'm not surprised at all. As far as Molotov cocktails are concerned, petrol bombs are concerned, acid is concerned, it's a matter of concern that these were, whether it's a matter of investigation as well as to how such preparations were made, how acid was bought, where it was bought from, how much acid was brought in, how much petrol, where was this petrol bought from, because petrol pumps are not supposed to give loose petrol to anyone. They're only supposed to fill petrol in vehicles. So all these things will have to be investigated. However, we must also remember one thing. When we debate about whether this was completely pre-planned or was being planned for days together, or whether it was spontaneous, then we must understand that, look, we're living in the age of free data and mobile phone in every hand. Now, organizing something does not take too much time. It remains a matter of investigation. How much of this was pre-planned and how much of this became spontaneous? It could be a mix of both, that there were certain sections in that area which were actually planning it for a while and had prepared. But at the same time, when you have internet and you have WhatsApp groups and you have messages which can be, spread very fast. Let's remember, in Kashmir, when stone pelting happens, as many as 10,000 people can gather in a matter of hours, and stone pelting can start. How does that happen? There are WhatsApp groups which spread the message, and suddenly people come and gather. Because already these people are used to doing this. There has been tension in the area. So these are things that we must understand, and it could be a mix of both the things.
No, so that brings me to another question, which really intrigues me. And Mr. Jain, I don't know if you would agree with me or not, but the question that intrigues me is this. In the last 2 months or so, when we had the spate of anti-CAA protests that broke out, whether it was Uttar Pradesh or Karnataka, we saw the local state police forces in many, many districts actually shutting down the internet access completely. Nothing of that was done in Northeast Delhi. Now, I know that in previous cases when governments or police forces shut down the internet by using prohibitory orders have been criticized, maybe the extent of it was criticized, but surely in most cases the police believed that shutting that down was a necessary requirement to stop messages being spread, as Deeptiman is mentioning, because obviously gathering people and getting them together is easier when you have access to all of this. Do you think this was one another misstep that should have possibly been done? At least the Northeast district, we should have shut the internet down or the access to quick telephony?
Yes, it should have been done. All possible measures should be taken by the administration, by police, to curb riots, and to curb riots with a very heavy hand. I agree with what Mr. Kakkar said, that I would have been happier if police had fired on antisocial elements, if police had fired on communal elements who were indulging in arson, looting. Police should have killed rioters instead of allowing Hindus to fire on Muslims and Muslims to fire on Hindus. You can't have this kind of situation in capital city of the country. If you remember, in Mumbai, long time back, gangs were fighting each other, and there used to be dead bodies all over the place. It led to a lot of criticism of Mumbai police, and after that, Mumbai police started the crackdown on gangs, and so many notorious criminals were shot down, and Mumbai police earned the image from that time. So there can't be soft paddling in police. Soft paddling is required at times when you can bring the situation under control without use of force. Peace committee meetings should be held, elderly people should be contacted, imams and religious leaders should be requested, doctors, lawyers of the area, they are requested, and they come out and the situation is controlled. But not when such hooliganism is going on. No sensible person will come out in the support of police, because they are also hiding in their houses. They are waiting for their turn. So I have never seen such a situation after 1984, and it's very shameful, and it will take a very long time. Let me tell you, the 42 families which have lost their family members, they are not going to forget it. People who have lost a lot of properties, the cars have been burnt, houses have been burnt, shops have been burnt. These scars will remain for a very long time, and in such a situation, it becomes very difficult to police that district, and very stern measures will be required for coming 1 or 2 years if they want to quell the riots in this area. And it should be done with a very, very heavy hand.
Mr. Jain, nobody ever should forget any riot. And unfortunately, that's what invariably happens. All these death tolls are just reduced to a statistic because there is no accountability. We'll discuss that in just a bit, but also all the steps that you were mentioning, the Aman committee meetings that should happen, meeting with the elders and all the community leaders of that area. Unfortunately, in Delhi, it's happened too little too late. We saw those steps being taken only yesterday. So obviously, there's been a massive failure and the Delhi police has awakened from its slumber too late in the day, and by then all the damage had already been done. But Deeptiman, just a question to you now. When you've been traveling in Delhi in these areas, have you been also picking up news of the role of outsiders in this? You saw something that Manish Sisodia said, that this can't be people from Delhi doing this. There are probably outsiders that are coming in. There were certain routes that were sealed to prevent anyone from traveling. And even some eyewitnesses told our reporters that they couldn't recognize the people on the streets and they were perhaps outsiders who were involved in rioting.
Look, it's a border area. The possibility of outsiders coming in and creating, some kind of trouble cannot be ruled out. It remains a matter of investigation. There have been reports from the ground that some outsiders may have been present, some outsiders may have created some kind of trouble. Look, when riots happen, it's also an opportunity for people to loot, pillage, or take out some kind of personal enmity. So you will find different kind of elements getting into the entire mix, for their own good. I have known of riots where people have been called in from different states with the promise where these things have been organized, and these have been revealed in investigations later, that people have been called from other states with the promise that you will get an opportunity to loot. So if investigations later show that it had a mix of outsiders from UP or elsewhere, I'll not be surprised at all. I have seen almost in all riots across the country, there have been instances when people do come from outside.
Right. Vinay, I just want to take a brief segue here for all our viewers who are wondering what these petrol bombs are also that we're talking about. I don't want you to explain to them how to make one, please, but just what is a petrol bomb and why is it that it's not something that's easily accessible for good reason?
Well, look, Deeptiman used a particular term, Molotov cocktail, which is exactly the term because it has its origins in the USSR, the undivided Russia. But the fact is, it's a very simple device. You just take a glass bottle, you fill it up with fuel, and you have a cloth or a cotton wool or something else stuffed on the top of it, and it becomes like the route for it to catch fire. You throw it, the spark from it will automatically ignite and it will blow up. So it's a very simple device. Also remember, it's a glass bottle, so it also acts as a bit of a missile in many ways because the glass pieces are strewn all over, so it has a dual impact. And once the bottle is hit on the ground, remember the fuel spills. So the coverage area of the fuel on fire extends. So it's a very effective tool in arson. I mean, you throw a Molotov, a petrol bomb inside a house, and pretty much you'll be sure that the fire will be much bigger and larger than anything else. Similarly, you do it. Look, I mean, I can tell you that if you and I want to go and set a bus on fire, it won't happen. It's not easy. There is a technique to set a bus on fire. There is a technique to set a vehicle on fire. It's not easy to set a vehicle on fire. You try and do it, it will die out in 2 minutes. Only an expert knows where and at what part of the vehicle should you light the fire for it to become successful.
Which adds further credence to the fact that this has been a planned conspiracy.
Absolutely.
It's not something that you and I can decide, let's go burn a bus and do that and come back.
Yes. So, I mean, in buses, for instance, typically the first thing that is set on fire is the tire or the seats that are in which contain foam, because that's the one that will catch fire the quickest, or near the petrol, tank that they have, because that blows up and the whole bus goes up in flame. We have, there are more than one evidences now that we found today, our reporters went and found, where we saw that burning motorcycles were pushed inside houses, because that then becomes a very effective tool to have a house being set on fire. And many houses which have actually got burned down have been burned down by use of motorcycles or some other missile or trajectory that was used. So obviously this is some amount of expertise involved in it. Now, the only leeway or the only point that I wanted to make was, yes, it is possible because as Deeptiman has been pointing out repeatedly, this area is very crime infested. It has people who are routinely, I mean, you know, I remember during Mr. Kakkar's time, there used to be a Dabbu gang and a Dhanni gang, and they would keep getting arrested and keep getting bailed out, and they would keep, this rotation used to continue all the time. In fact, I remember, he would remember that there was one particular instance where they are so notorious that he got bailed out, he came out of the hearing from the Tisari court, and he was caught doing exactly the same opposite the court complex. They are so brazen. So you can imagine how bad those places are, which to me is the biggest reason why we should doubt and worry why the police didn't react quickly enough. Because any police officer in Delhi, any AG Amit Kadar officer would know that that's the one district where things can really get out of hand very quickly. It's very congested, and it is now much more congested than it used to be 20 years ago. So it's a tinder box, and you really concentrate and work harder to save your tinder boxes and not so much the other places which are easier to manage.
Yes, Mr. Kakkar, you wanted to come in. Go ahead.
No, I just see the Northeast district is very thickly populated, and where both the communities, maybe one community is more, the others are maybe with say 70%, 30% and all that. And there are certain localities where the trouble can occur any time. We keep talking of Ganga Yamuna Tehzeeb, but let me tell you, when it comes to question of religion, everything is forgotten by these elements who are not very highly educated, who are not, most of them are uneducated totally, and they come under the sway of the religious leaders. If you, from the ramparts, if you keep on telling people that your religion is danger and is in danger, and that you have to wake up and you have to pick up arms, then these people who do not understand the civilities of the society, they do that. But let me tell you, I agree that these are the areas which are now highly, they are populated where you can't even move. And once you come outside the houses, it's very difficult even to move on the road. Therefore, the Delhi police will probably have to strengthen the force here much more, have permanent intelligence units which can tell you as to what is brewing, and then take steps, and do not wait for the situation to escalate to an extent where it becomes impossible or becomes difficult to control. Right in the beginning, nip it in the bud. Use the force and justify it, because it can always be justified. The courts are not, but they're not the people who will always find faults with you. But what has happened over a period is that the officers and men, they do not want to get involved into cases after cases, which has led to some amount of inaction on part of everybody. This has to be rectified, and now that this has happened and there is an opportunity, go all out, search every house in that area where these riots have taken place. Cordon off the area, go and search every house, every room. You will definitely find a lot of incriminating material, and then take action. If they have already registered 123 FIR, register another 100, doesn't matter. Register and make sure that all those miscreants are brought to book, if not now, little later.
Arvind Kumar Jain, I see you nodding in agreement with what Mr. Kakkar is saying. I know you want to come in. Please go ahead.
I would like to put forward 2-3 points. Number one, I think Delhi police over a period of time has become highly overconfident. And they have lost the connect with the people. I have been IG of Lucknow 4 times. I have been SSP Ghaziabad, Noida. We used to have regular meetings with the people. lot of people who have influence in the area used to be appointed as special police officers in hundreds, after character verification. We have a system of civil defense. We have thousands and thousands of civil defense wardens of all the communities, and they are very influential people of the area. Why was not meeting held? Before every important activity, we used to have meeting of civil defense wardens. We used to request them to remain on the road, and they used to provide us very valuable information. Now the phone numbers, mobile numbers are known to everybody. If we keep the mobile with us and if we pick it up and we remain in touch with the people, and people have faith in you, that is most important. People should have faith in you that if they will give you some information, it will not be divulged. It will not be divulged to the other party, to the antisocial elements. Then you will get the best possible intelligence. Best possible intelligence comes from people who are simple, who are law-abiding. They will give you the right information because they don't have an axe to grind. So I have been IG of Lucknow 4 times. In old Lucknow, Shia Sunni, as you must be aware,
yes.
it is Shia Sunni trouble takes place, but we have thousands of wardens, thousands of special police officers, and they are in touch with the Lucknow police. They are in touch with various police stations. They are in touch with the senior police officers. And even after my retirement, they keep on ringing me up. They are such nice people. So one should not lose the connect with the people. If you will lose the connect with the people, you will not get any information. If you are overconfident, you think that you will be able to control the situation and you don't require anybody's help, you are sadly mistaken. You will face this kind of situation.
You know what Mr. Jain was just mentioning, Aarti, there is the civil defense has there's a directorate of it. There's a Director General Civil Defense which actually does that. It's a very organized unit. He was also referring to something else which is very critical, the interstate coordination. There is an interstate coordination cell in Delhi Police. There is a DCP rank officer who handles the interstate coordination. And I think when he was talking about being posted in Ghaziabad and Noida, they were supposed to do intercoordination state meetings with the neighboring districts as well. So I remember during Mr. Kakkar's time, Joint Commissioner rank officers would routinely range, at least the Eastern Range, which was in those days, there were only 3 ranges. And the Joint Commissioners of Eastern Range would hold these meetings with the SSPs and the Merit Range IGs, because obviously the borders are porous and sometimes criminal elements come into each other's states and commit a crime or go back in. So these coordination meetings were very effective. I'm not sure if that happens anymore. I'm not really sure if that kind of intel is even shared between the 2 neighboring states, because Deeptiman has been stressing the point, and very rightly so, that between the 2 states there is a lot of exchange of people who commit crime in one jurisdiction and then walk over or cross over to the other. Those are all basics of policing, which obviously in this expansion and the modernization of the police force, we seem to have forgotten the most important part of it, which is the human intelligence, which is the last mile beat constable who actually walks around in neighborhoods and gets you that information. However trivial it may sound, the SHO's diary that is maintained in every thana is your most valuable input, because that really gives you a pattern of what can be happening or possibly might likely to happen.
Well, it clearly appears then that the Delhi police have forgotten the basics of policing, because we just brought you 6 signs that this was a riot, that was a premeditated conspiracy. Why they chose to ignore those signs is something only they can answer. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on the first debate tonight on Urban Debate.